And hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morrow, wherever and however you may happen to be. I'm Tad, and you are other people. You are other people. There's other people in the world. It sometimes seems a little dubious these days, as most of us spend most of our days locked down, locked in, behind the eight ball, as it were. But I'm happy to be here. I'm going to be reading. I'm going to be reading, as per usual at the moment, from the first Otherland book, City of Golden Shadow. Although they didn't even bother to put the title on the book, I don't think, because they didn't want to confuse people with one of those unnecessarily long book titles. Anyway, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm also not going to be talking quite as long as usual at the beginning, I think, so I have more time to read tonight because I got started a little late last night and only got partway through the chapter that I thought I would finish. So there's not a lot to tell, really, otherwise, except it's Deb's birthday, which I've mentioned in a couple places online, so that's no secret or surprise. And of course, as always, I am extremely happy to be able to spend my wife's birthday with her and have her spend it with me. And we had a very nice family dinner last night because the restaurant that Deb loves and that I love too was not open on Sundays. So today is the actual birthday, and so we've done the presenting. And later on, we're going to do the tree, which is a miracle in itself. I can't remember the last time that we actually had a tree decorated. We've already got the tree, but we've had the tree decorated by the time Deb's birthday was over. So that's like a huge step forward. And another 10 years or so of lockdown, we may actually get our tree early in December one year. So that's something to look forward to, I guess. Anyway, anything else that I have to say? No, because it's all been kind of about Deb's birthday. And of course, the upcoming holidays and the whole presenting, gifting, wrapping thing. I just woefully underperformed on wrapping this year, but I'm not even ashamed anymore. I'm past that point. You know, it's like about 10, 15 years ago, we gave up Christmas cards and like I felt guilty. I still occasionally have a little twinge of it when somebody else sends us Christmas cards because people do, and it's very nice. I don't want anybody to think that I'm somehow cursing when I get Christmas cards in the mail. I'm not. It's lovely to be remembered by people that you like. It's just that we gave it up a long time ago, you know, because for one thing, we've got the professional social life thing that they're all wrapped up together, and we would literally having to be do hundreds of cards to deal with all the folks that are important to us in one way or another. And okay, let's also be honest about this. Let's be forthright. We're not the most organized people in the world. I know that's going to be a shock to those of you who know us well, as a few of you do, and have been to our house and seen the precision with which everything is dealt with and the metronome like timing in which our entire existence is measured out. God, that's a horrible lie. It's supposed to be a lie. I've said it. I said it precisely so the people who have dealt with us can have a little laugh, because obviously it's not true. We're basically decent human beings, but if somebody ever brought an efficiency expert into our household, that poor efficiency expert would probably just just pitch over dead from a cardiac infarction of some kind, because we're not organized. We do okay. We pay our bills, we get food on the table. We do all that stuff, but that's kind of about as far as it gets before we start to go, I got work to do. Other work. The stuff that pays the bills. So anyway, not a huge amount to report other than the fact that the holidays proceed forward with their grinding inexorability. But we are now getting into the home stretch. We were in the last week before Christmas and then Boxing Day, and we will have a nice family get together on Boxing Day this year. And so it's the I don't want to say the worst. That's such a mean thing to say about the holidays, especially when I'm so lucky and surrounded by good people and have lovely friends and all that. So I don't want to say the worst is almost over, but the worst is almost over. Just in the sense that anything that distracts me from work and my family and friends, it is just that. It's distraction, and I still have a deep reservoir of love for the holidays in my heart. And when I have moments that I can enjoy, I definitely enjoy them. But it's this time of the year is just nutsy for me. We've got birthdays and holidays and all this stuff. November and December are just like nonstop. It's like being in a pachinko machine. It's like being strapped to a little silver ball and dropped in at the top of a pachinko machine just before Halloween, and you start going down hitting the little posts and bouncing over here and banging off some other little silver balls, and eventually you wind up in the bottom rack of the whole thing, and then you go, what was that for? That's me with the holidays. So anyway, enough of my grinching and my miserating. I am going to say hello to everybody, and then I'm going to start reading. I just dropped my bookmark, so I have to do something else to mark my place. So let me do that. Let me say hello to those who have joined us this evening. Greg, hello. Good evening to you. Kelly, good evening to you as well. A pleasure. Where did Greg's? I just said hello to Greg, and then he just disappeared. God, this comments section is screwed up. Anyway, Kelly, also good evening, and Merry Christmas to you and your family as well. Jared, hello, Jared. Happy holidays back to you, and I will pass your birthday message along to Deborah. Felina, hello, and prepped for next week. Oh, my God. Oh, which reminds me, I probably won't be reading next week because we'll be doing first Christmas and then Boxing Day, and frankly, I just don't think I can stress that through the whole thing and get everything else dealt with. So I am going to take a week off next week. I'm sure somehow you will all manage to muddle through without me. But of course, we wish you all very happy holidays. So Calvin, hello. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. The family and I are fine. As I said, I'm a bit dazed by this time of the year, but everything else is good. Everybody's still healthy. People are getting their booster shots or their follow-up shots or whatever the hell you want to call them, and we're doing all the stuff we should do, and we're taking care of our various loved ones, and both four-legged, two-legged, and otherwise. And yes, we do have at least one otherwise in the household, which is our snake, Irwin. Well, the snake who belongs to two of our young people. And Irwin's doing fine, too, as far as I know. Kristen, hello. Good to see you. Carl, good evening to you, and all that jazz right back at you. By the way, any of you out there who haven't ever seen the movie All That Jazz, which is a sort of a fictionalized biopic about Bob Fosse, the director and choreographer, starring Roy Scheider, who is brilliant in that movie, I strongly recommend it. That's just Carl's greeting to me reminded me of that. All That Jazz, which is actually comes from the musical Chicago. But anyway, so Claudia, hello, happy Sunday to you too. And again, I will pass on the birthday wishes. Jenny, hola, good to see you. Thank you for joining me. Who else? Mark, hello, Mark. Good to see you, buddy. We've been thinking about you. We're sorry we still can't travel around much, but we look forward to seeing you when things are a little more sensible again. Rose, hello, and I will pass your happy birthday along to Deborah. If that's your real name, I am so effing jealous. Rose Wilderness. If it's not your real name, then I guess I could have named myself that, but I'm tremendously jealous anyway. What a great name. Mahmoud. Someday you're going to have to tell me the correct pronunciation so that I get it right, because I'm just been guessing all these years. Anyway, greetings. Yes, by all means. If a rooster annoys you, throw a cat at it. That is absolutely an old axiom that I hold to. And in fact, I usually keep a bag of cats around the house just in case a rooster annoys me in some way. Unfortunately, you have to keep feeding them if you want them to be really useful, which is a problem. But, hey, you can't make a rooster without breaking some cats' hearts. I don't know. Okay, so What else have we got here? Who have I not said hello to yet? Ron. Hello, Ron. And very, very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that stuff for you too. Kristen, yes, get your COVID test. Don't worry about it. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I've had it done for other things. It's not that bad. Just have a long breathing session first, and then say, "Go ahead, make free with my nostril." Glenn, hello, Glenn. Good to see you. Felina, yes, that is. I I've explained it before, but I may have explained it to the Sunday early morning crowd. That is a stylish gorilla behind me. That is a stuffed replica of Coco, the sign language gorilla, who was trained and raised and lived with Penny Patterson, the animal behaviorist. And Coco has always been a great favorite of mine. We lived near her when she was still living in California before she moved to Hawaii, where she spent the last years of her life. And we were contributors to the Gorilla Foundation. But the reason I have that is because my publisher, Betsy Walheim, when I finally finished Green Angel Tower, which many of you know I've referred to as things like the book that ate my life, which at the time was somewhat true. Betsy sent me that lovely stuffed gorilla as a congratulations, you finally got the monkey off your back moment of recognition. So, and Coco has lived with us ever since. Kenneth, hello, Kenneth. Good to see you. Mike, Mr. Heath, lovely to see you, sir. Or Mr. Lane Heath, however you prefer. Anyway, happy Crimbo to you too, sir. And birthday Lady Deb and the whole menage. Absolutely. Alex, happy holidays to you and welcome aboard. Lovely to have you. Cliff, hello. Good to see you. And yes, we'll pass the birthday messages along to Deb. And, well, Coco is almost the coolest thing ever, Felina. What I really wanted to do was go meet Coco when she was still living near where we lived. We had a lot of semi-famous people and animals living near us. We were living near Neil Young at the same time. Steve Jobs, who had his property somewhere near us, and we only knew that because this was back in the 90s when the Clintons would come to visit him, or at least, Bill Clinton would come to visit him, and we'd get up in the morning and on our way off to wherever we were going and find the entire area, this kind of rustic town in the hills, just completely suffused with police cars. There would be police cars everywhere. I'm not exaggerating. I'm talking about you would go down like our main street and there would be like 20 of them parked, 10 on each side, and you'd go around the corner and there'd be more. So we had Coco the sign language gorilla and Larry Ellison, who had his monstrous, gigantic, whatever it was, Japanese Rococo McMansion around the corner from us. And meanwhile, we were not rich people. We had very rich people living all around us, and we were like pretty normal people in terms of our income and everything else. But we were up in the hills above Silicon Valley, and it tends to attract rich people with giant houses. And I think the zoning means that you can have normal houses next to or across the street from gigantic compounds with like 14 buildings in them, which is what the people across from us had. And so anyway, yeah, so and Neil Young and Tracy Chapman, the woman I believe the woman who did Fast Cars, she was around there somewhere too. So there was all kinds of us folks all living cheek by jowl, but we were the poor ones. Don't feel sorry for us. We were okay. We had a nice income and living, and I'm not meaning to make it sound like we were poor, like we were out. What's the word I'm looking for? We were not out panhandling. We were not in poverty, but we were like normal, like normal people with a decent job, and we were living around billionaires, and it was really weird. And when we finally moved over to Santa Cruz side, our kids were like, "We had no idea." Like, you kept telling us that we were surrounded by rich people and that like a lot of the other kids in our class were rich people, and and that it wasn't normal. But like, we had no idea. And then we moved to a much more normal area and they were shocked by the contrast. Fortunately, not upset. They rather liked it better, I have to say. When you don't have to go over to your friend's house and see like, "Oh, look, my parents just bought me a string of polo ponies." You don't have to have that kind of envy. Anyway, I am now going to read after I've started babbling and babbling. But anyway, Lovely to see you all. I hope I got everybody. Greg was the first one that I saw, and then his message disappeared. So I don't know why, but it's just weird. Oh, wait, no, there's more people that I haven't said hello to. There's Renee and Medardo. And who else did I maybe miss? I think I got everybody. No, Felicity. There's Felicity, who's checking in from, I assume, still Wellington in New Zealand. I have been to visit Felicity and her lovely family in New Zealand when I was touring there. So always good to see Felicity, who I've known ever since she was but a wee small one. Anyway, so where we are in the book. At the moment where we were reading, Rini has gone into the Mr. J's nightclub in search of some information about what happened to her brother Stephen, who, as you remember, is in a coma. Kabu, her student, has gone with her, and they have been tripping around in the, oh my God. They have been tripping around in Mr. J's. They were just recently in an underwater simulation where a giant sea monster was chasing them, and they escaped from that, but just barely. And the last paragraph was actually, Rini and Kabu splashed through a curtain of water and fell forward onto a stone walkway as Leviathan's disappointed bellow shook the walls. So we continue. Inferno, said Rini. They're playing games, that's all. It's supposed to be hell. That didn't sound right, but I'll get the accent by the time I'm a few more sentences in. Kabu still trembled. She could feel his shoulder shaking beneath her hand, but had ceased thrashing. The face of his sim was inadequate to express what she guessed was going on behind it. I am ashamed, he said at last. I have behaved badly. Nonsense. Her reply was purposefully swift. It frightened me, and I do this for a living. Which was not quite true. Very few of the VR environments she frequented had attractions of quite this order, but she didn't want the small man's spirit broken. Join me on the other band. That thing gives you some kind of idea of the programming and processing power they've got here, doesn't it? Kabu would not be so easily mollified. I could not stop myself. That is why I'm ashamed. I knew it was not real, Rini. I would not forget your teaching so easily. But when I was a child, a crocodile took me, and another took my cousin. I pulled free because it had a poor grip. I have the scars on my upper arm and shoulder still, but my cousin was not so lucky. When that crocodile was found and killed some days later, we found him in its belly, half dissolved and white as milk. Rini shuddered. Don't blame yourself. God, I wish you'd told me about that before I dragged you into the pool. That's where VR can cause harm, and no one disputes it. Where it touches on phobias or childhood fears, but because it's a controlled environment, they use it to cure those fears too. I do not feel cured, said Kabu miserably. No, I'm not surprised. She squeezed his arm again, then got to her feet. Her muscles were sore, just from the tension alone, she guessed. That and the pummeling Kabu had unwittingly given her. Come on, we've burned an hour or so of our time already, and we've barely seen anything. Where are we? He too straightened and stood, then stopped as a sudden idea struck him. Do we have to go out the same way when we leave? Rini laughed. We most certainly do not. As a matter of fact, we can pull out directly any time we want. All you have to do is make the exit command. Remember? I do now. The corridor had been designed to carry on the motif of the boiling lake. The walls were the same black igneous stone, rough to the touch and dreary to look at. A sourceless red light suffused everything. We could wander aimlessly, she said, or we can be a little more scientific about this. She paused for a moment, but saw nothing that looked suggestive. Options, she said loudly and clearly. A tracery of burning lines appeared on the wall beside them. She studied the list, many of which were unpleasantly suggestive, and picked one of the most neutral. Stairs! The corridor wavered, then dropped away before them like water running down a drain. They stood on a landing in the middle of a wide, curving staircase that stretched away above and below, each step a massive slab of glossy black stone. For an instant they were alone, then the air flickered and they were surrounded by pale shapes. By my ancestors, breathed Kabu. Hundreds of ghostly figures filled the stairwell, some trudging wearily, many burdened by heavy bags or other burdens. Others, less substantial, floated in tatters above the steps like mist. Rini saw a variety of ancient costumes from many cultures and heard a whispering babble of different tongues, as though these shades were meant to represent a cross-section of human history. She gestured to raise the sound on her earplugs, but still could not quite understand any of them. More lost souls, she said. I wonder if someone is trying to send us a message? Abandon all hope, ye who enter here, or something like that. Kabu looked uncomfortable as he watched a beautiful Asian woman float past, her weeping head cradled carefully between the stumps of her wrists. What shall we do now? He asked. Go down. It seemed obvious. You have to go down before you can come out. That's how these things always work. Ah. Kabu turned toward her, a sudden smile stretching his simulated face. Such wisdom is not easily come by, Rini. I am impressed. She stared at him for a moment. She had been talking about the endless dungeon games she had played as a net girl, but she wasn't quite sure what he meant. Come on, then. She wondered at first whether there would be any resistance, or at least any scenarios to be played out, but the spirits of the staircase only eddied past on either side, as murmurously harmless as pigeons. One, a gnarled old man who wore nothing but a loincloth, stood stationary in the middle of the staircase, silently shaking with laughter or tears. Rini tried to walk around him, but his sudden convulsive movement brought him against her elbow. He instantly dissolved into smoky wisps, then reformed farther up the stairs, still bent, still shaking. They walked for almost half an hour, companioned only by simulations of the restless dead. The staircase seemed endless, and Rini was considering choosing one of the doorways that led off each landing when she heard a voice cutting through the unhappy burble of the phantoms. Like a she-dog, breathing hard, growling, foam on her lips. You shall see. The remark was followed by a chorus of raucous laughter. Rini and Kabu rounded a bend. On the landing before them stood 4 men, all quite real, at least compared to the phantom bystanders. 3 of them were dark-skinned, dark-haired demigods, tall and almost impossibly handsome. The 4th was not quite as tall, but monstrously bulky, as though someone had dressed a hippopotamus in a white suit and given it a round, bald human head. Although his back was to them, and their approach made no sound, the fat man turned to Rini and Kabu immediately. Rini felt the swift examination by his small, bright eyes, almost physically, like a series of probing finger jabs. Ah, hello! Are you enjoying yourselves, gentlemen? His voice was a work of genius, deep, buttery tones like a viola da gamba. Yes, thank you. She kept a hand on Kabu's shoulder, uncertain. Is this your first time in the world-renowned Mr. J's? Asked the fat man. Come, I am certain that it is. No need to be ashamed. You must join us, for I know all the ins and outs of this strange and wonderful place. I am Strimbello. He pushed the tip of his blunt jaw toward his breastbone in a minimal bow. His chins flattened out and bulged like gills. Pleased to meet you, Rini said. I am Mr. Otepi, and this is my business associate, Mr. Wonde. You are from Africa. Splendid, splendid. Strimbello beamed as though Africa were a clever trick she and Kabu had just performed. My other friends? What a day for new friends this has been! Are from the Indian subcontinent. Madras, to be specific. Please may I introduce you to the brothers Pavamana. His three companions gave fractional nods. They were practically triplets, or at least their sims were nearly identical. A lot of money had been spent on their handsome VR bodies. Rini decided that it was probably overcompensation. In RL, the Pavamana brothers were doubtless pockmarked and sunken-chested. Pleased to meet you, she said. Kabu echoed her. And I was just taking these excellent fellows to see some of the Inferno's more select attractions. Strimbello lowered his voice and winked. He had more than a little of the carnival barker about him. Would you care to join us? Rini suddenly remembered that Stephen had mentioned a fat man. Her heartbeat grew swifter. Could it all happen so quickly, so easily? But if opportunity was here, so was danger. You are very kind. She and Kabu shared a glance as they fell into step behind the other group. Rini lifted a finger to her lips, warning him not to say anything, even on private band. If this man was part of the inner circle of Mr. J's, it would be folly to assume anything about his capabilities. As they floated down the great staircase, Strimbello seemed uninterested in Araviste pursuits like walking. The fat man regaled them with stories about the various ghosts, or the people the ghosts represented. One of them, a Frankish knight from the Crusades, had been cuckolded in an admirably devious manner at which even Rini and Kabu had to laugh. Without changing tone, Strimbello then described what had happened afterward and pointed out the two legless, armless figures worming along the stairs several paces behind the armored phantom. Rini felt sick. The fat man lifted his broad arms and raised his hands, palms up. The whole company suddenly floated away from the staircase and around another bend in the cavern wall, which abruptly dropped away. They were hanging above a great emptiness, a miles-deep well. The stairway spiraled down around its perimeter, vanishing in the dim red glow far beneath them. Too slow, Strimbello said, and there's much, much to show you. He gestured again, and they were falling. Rini felt her stomach drop alarmingly. The visuals were good, but not that good, surely. Suspended in her harness and experiencing everything through the senses of her low-order sim, she should not be feeling this swift drop in such a visceral way. Beside her, Kabu had spread his arms as though to slow his descent. He looked slightly nervous, but there was a determined set to his narrow jaw that made Rini feel better. The little man was holding up well. We will, of course, land quite safely. Strimbello's round head seemed almost to blink like a light bulb as the alternating levels of darkness and light strobed past. I hope I don't sound patronizing, Mr. Otepi. Perhaps you have enjoyed such virtual experiences before. Nothing like this, said Rini truthfully. Their fall ended, although they still hung in midair with a bottomless depth of well below them. At Strimbello's magisterial gesture, they slid sideways through nothingness and alighted on one of the levels that ringed the pit like theater balconies. The Pavamana brothers grinned and pointed at the passers-by. Their mouths moved without sound as they conversed on their own private band. Doors were open all along the curving promenade, spilling noise and color and the sound of many voices and many languages, laughter, screams, and unintelligible rhythmic chanting. A variety of sims, mostly male, Rini could not help noticing. She suspected the few female shapes were part of the entertainment, moved in and out of the doorways and down the alleyways that radiated out from the central well. Some were embodied as handsomely as the Pavamana brothers, but many wore only the most basic forms. Small, gray, and almost faceless, they scuttled among their shining brothers like the pathetic damned. Strimbello suddenly took her by the arm. His vast hand printed itself so powerfully on her tactors that she winced. "Come, come," he said. "It is time to see some of what you came here for. Perhaps the Yellow Room?" "Oh, yes," one of the Pavamanas said. The other two nodded excitedly. "We have been told very much about that place." "It is justifiably famous," said the fat man. He turned to Rini and Kabu, his sim face a perfect representation of shrewd humor. "And you are not to worry at the expense, my new friends. I am well known here. My credit is good. Yes? You will come?" Rini hesitated, then nodded. "So be it." Strimbello waved his hand, and the promenade seemed to bend around them. A moment later they were in a long, low-ceilinged room, lit in various unpleasant shades of ochre and acid lemon. Throbbing music filled Rini's ears, a monotonous percussive thumping. The fat man was still gripping her arm firmly. She had to struggle to turn and look for Kabu. Her friend was behind the Pavamanas, staring around the crowded room. The same mix of high and low-quality sims that filled the promenade lined the tables of the Yellow Room, bellowing cheerfully at the stage which filled one end of the room, pounding with their fists until virtual crockery rolled and shattered on the floor. The bilious light gave their faces a feverish look. A woman, or what appeared to be a woman, Rini reminded herself, stood on stage doing a jerky strip-tease timed to the swiftly lurching music. Rini was briefly reassured to see something so old-fashioned in its benign naughtiness, until she realized that what the woman was peeling off was not clothing, but skin. Already a ballet skirt of translucent, paper-thin, red-spotted flesh dangled from her hips. Worst of all was the look of resigned misery on the woman's. No, the Sims, Rini reminded herself. Slack face. Unable to watch, Rini looked around again for Kabu. She could see the top of his head past the Pavamanas, who were bobbing and elbowing each other like a slapstick comedy team. She stole another glance at the stage, but the wincing performer was now revealing the first layers of muscle flexing across her stomach, so Rini concentrated on the crowd instead. That did little to relieve her growing sense of claustrophobic discomfort. The simuloid faces of the audience were all wide, soulless eyes and gaping mouths. This was indeed the inferno. A movement at the edge of her vision caught her attention. She thought Strimbello had been watching her, but when she turned, he appeared to be engrossed in the performance, his head nodding as if in proprietary approval, a tight smile pulling at the corners of his wide, wide mouth. Did he suspect, somehow, that she and Kabu were not what they professed to be? How could he? They had done nothing unusual, and she had worked very hard on their aliases. But whatever he thought of them, he made her terribly uncomfortable. Whoever or whatever lived behind those small, hard eyes would be a very dangerous enemy. The throbbing music died. Rini turned back to the stage as a blare of horns signaled the departure of the stripper. A few desultory hand claps followed her as she limped toward the back of the stage, trailing a bridal train of tattered, glistening flesh. A deep orchestral hum signaled the next act. Strimbello leaned his huge head near. "Do you understand French, Mr. Otepi? This is what you would call la spécialité de la maison, the Yellow Room's signature attraction. He wrapped a large hand around her arm again and gave her a little shake. "You are of legal age, are you not?" He laughed suddenly, revealing broad, flat teeth. "Of course you are. Just my little joke." Rini sought Kabu, a bit desperately this time. They had to think about getting away from this man soon. But her friend was hidden by the three Pavamanas, who had leaned forward in unison to watch the stage, false faces rapt. The deep rumble of the music changed, taking on a processional air, and a group of people walked out, all but one dressed in dark robes with hoods drawn up. The unhooded exception, Rini was surprised to see, was the pale singer from the lounge. Or was it? The face, especially the huge, haunted eyes, looked the same, but this one's hair was a great curling auburn cascade, and she also seemed taller and longer-limbed. Before Rini could make up her mind, several of the robed figures stepped forward and grabbed the pale woman, who did not resist. The music shuddered, and a quickening beat began to make itself felt beneath the humming chords. The stage lengthened like a protruded tongue. The walls and tables and even the patrons also reshaped themselves, flowing around the woman and her attendants until the room surrounded the strange tableau like a hospital operating theater. The acid glow dimmed until everything was in shadow, and the woman's bone-white face seemed the only source of light. Then her robes were torn away, and her pale body leaped into view like a sudden flame. Rini took a sharp breath. She heard louder, harsher inhalations on all sides. The young woman was not shaped like the dream figure of male fantasy she would have expected in a place like this. Her long, slender legs, delicate rib cage, and small, mauve-tipped breasts made her seem little past adolescence. The girl at last raised her dark eyes to look at the audience. Her expression was a mixture of reproach and fear, but something else lurked beneath, a kind of disgust, almost a challenge. Someone shouted at her in a language Rini didn't understand. Close behind, another customer laughed explosively. With no sign of physical effort, the robed figures grabbed at the girl's forelimbs and lifted her from the floor. She floated between them, extended and glowingly pale, something pure to be marked or shaped. The music dropped to a low, anticipatory hum. One of the dark figures twisted the girl's arm. She writhed, dull dark veins and the bunching of tendons suddenly visible beneath the translucent skin, but did not make a sound. The arm was twisted and pulled farther. There was a gristly noise as something tore, and the girl cried out at last, a choking, drawn-out sob. Rini turned away, her stomach lurching. "It's only pictures," she told herself. "Not real, not real." Shapes hunched forward on either side, craning for a better view. People were shouting, their voices already hoarse. Rini could almost feel a kind of collective darkness flowing from the watchers, as though the room were filling with poisonous smoke. More things were happening on the stage, more movements, more gasping cries. She did not want to look. The brothers from Madras were rubbing their hands back and forth on their impressively muscled thighs. Strimbello, sitting next to Rini, watched the action with his small, fixed smile. It went on for long minutes. Rini stared at the floor, struggling against the urge to scream and run away. These people were animals. No, worse than animals, for what wild creature could dream of something so vile? It was time to take Kabu and get out. That wouldn't be enough to reveal their imposture. Surely not all patrons of even as foul a place as this wanted to see these kinds of things. She started to rise, but Strimbello's broad hand pushed down hard on her leg, trapping her. "You should not go." His growl seemed to push its way deep into her ear. "Look, you will have much to tell back home." He reached his other hand up and pulled her chin around toward the stage. The girl's white limbs had been twisted into several impossible angles. One leg had been pulled to an obscene length, like a piece of taffy. The crowd was roaring now, so the girl's screams could no longer be heard, but her head snapped spastically from side to side, and her mouth gaped. One of the robed figures drew out something long and sharp and shiny. The clamor of the audience took on a different tone. A pack of dogs that had cornered some exhausted thing and now were baying for the kill. Rini tried to pull away from Strimbello's implacable grip. A piece of something wet and gleaming flew past her, arcing out into the shadowed seats. Someone behind her caught it and lifted it to his expressionless Sim face. He smeared it against his cheeks as though daubing a ceremonial mask, then pushed it into his idiot mouth. Rini tasted sour liquid as her stomach heaved again. She tried to look away, but all around her the patrons were lifting their hands, grabbing at other bits flung out from the stage. Horribly, she could hear the girl's shrieks even above the barking crowd. She could not take this any longer. She would go mad if she remained. If a virtual object could burn, then this place should be burned to its dark foundation. She thrust her hand out toward Kabu, trying frantically to get his attention. The little man was gone. The spot he had occupied behind the pavamanas was empty. "My friend!" She tried to tug herself free of Strimbello, who was unconcernedly watching the stage. "My friend is gone." "No matter," said Strimbello. "He will find something he likes better." "Then he is a fool," chortled one of the pavamanas, grinning like a lunatic. Simulated blood gleamed on his cheeks like an old courtesan's rouge. "There is nothing like the yellow room. Let me go. I have to find him." The fat man turned to look at her, his grin widening. "You are not going anywhere, my friend. I know exactly who you are. You are not going anywhere." The room seemed to bend. His dark eyes held her, small holes that offered a glimpse into something dreadful. Her heart was thumping as it hadn't even in Leviathan's pool. She almost dropped offline before remembering Kabu. Perhaps he was caught somehow in the way Stephen had been caught. If she bailed out of the system, she might find him in the same death-like trance that had claimed her brother. He was an innocent, as much so as Stephen. She couldn't abandon him. "Let me go, you bastard!" she shouted. Strimbello's grip did not loosen. Instead, he pulled her closer, dragging her into his wide lap. "Enjoy the performance, good sir," he said, "and then you will see more, much more." The crowd was shouting, an almost deafening roar of sound, but Rini could not think of the command to lower the volume. Something about the fat man submerged all her careful judgment in a flood of blind panic. She made a succession of gestures that accomplished nothing, then dredged up a command she hadn't used since her hacking days, splaying her fingers almost painfully wide and bowing her head. For a moment, the entirety of the yellow room seemed to freeze around her. A moment later, when it lurched back to life, she was several steps away from Strimbello, standing by herself on the floor before the stage. He stood, an expression of mild surprise on his broad features, and reached for her. Rini immediately moved herself out of the yellow room and onto the promenade. Even the bottomless well looked normal compared to what she had left behind, but the bushman's small Sim was nowhere in sight. Strimbello would be on her in a moment. "Kabu!" She shouted his name on the private channel, then boosted it and shouted again. "Kabu! Where are you?" There was no answer. The little man was gone. Okay, and now we are entering the second part of the book here, which is called Red King's Dream. Long has paled that sunny sky, echoes fade and memories die. Autumn frosts have slain July. Still she haunts me, phantom-wise, Alice moving under skies never seen by waking eyes. In a wonderland they lie, dreaming as the days go by, dreaming as the summers die. Ever drifting down the stream, lingering in the golden gleam, life, what is it but a dream? Lewis Carroll. Chapter 10, Thorns. Netfeed News. Agreement signed, but mistrust smolders in Utah. Visual, men shaking hands in front of Capitol Building, Salt Lake City. Voiceover. A fragile three-way peace now exists between the Utah state government, the Mormon Church, and the militant Mormon separatists known as the Deseret Covenant, but some question whether it can last without federal involvement. Visual. President Anford in Rose Garden. The U.S. government, citing the rights of states and cities to self-determination, has so far declined to become involved, leading to complaints from some Utah citizens that the Anford administration has, quote, reneged on the Constitution. Others, however, applaud the administration's hands-off approach. Visual. Edgar Riley, Deseret spokesman at press conference. Riley. No government has a right to tell us what to do in God's country. There are some warriors out here, hard men. If the state backtracks, we'll just shut everything down from the borders in. They come for you at dawn. It's Jankel, the nice one, and another named Simmons or something. You haven't seen him much. They used to send more than two, but times have changed. You haven't slept a wink, of course, but they come in quietly anyway, as though they don't want to startle you awake. It's time, Jankel tells you. He looks apologetic. You shrug off his extended hand and stand up. You aren't going to let someone else help you. You'll go on your own two legs if you can, but your knees are pretty weak. You've heard their footsteps in the corridor, phantom precursors, so many times through the long night. Now you feel gritty at the edges and blurry as a badly developed photograph. You're tired. Sleep is coming, though. You'll sleep soon. There's no priest or pastor. You told them you didn't want one. What kind of comfort could you get from some stranger babbling to you about something you don't believe in? Only Jankel to escort you, and Simmons, or whatever his name, is holding the door. Only a couple of low-wage prison bulls who need the overtime on a Sunday morning. They'll also pull a little bonus for doing this, of course, since it's one of the genuinely unpleasant jobs. No coercion of anyone but prisoners in the privatized penal system. Jankel must need the money with all those high-tax kids to feed. Otherwise, who else but a psychopath would sign up for this particular task? The last walk. A shuffle, really, with those heavy-duty nylon restraints around your ankles. None of the things you've seen in flicks happen. The other inmates don't come to their bars to call terse farewells. Most of them are sleeping, or pretending to sleep. You've been through this yourself when they took Garza. What could you say? And Jankel doesn't shout, "Dead man walking," or any of that other stuff. Never has. The closest he ever came was a quiet chat when you first came on the floor, where in best prison drama style he told you, "If you work with me, everything will be smooth. If not, you'll be doing some real hard time." Now he looks quiet, sorry, like he's taking someone else's dog run over in the road to the emergency veterinarian. The place they take you isn't really a doctor's office. It is the death chamber, after all, but it has the look and smell of any prison surgery. The doctor is a small man, if he really is a doctor. You only need to be med tech certified to perform an execution. He's obviously been waiting around about 15 minutes longer than he wanted to, with his morning coffee turning to acid in his stomach. He nods his head when you all come in, and a weird smile that's probably just dyspepsia and nerves plays across his lips. He nods again, then points a trifle shyly at the stainless steel table. Just a regular examination table with a little shrug as if to say, "We wish it could be nicer, but you know how times are." The two guards each take an arm as you slide your backside onto the paper covering. They're helping you, really, making sure your trembling legs don't prompt an embarrassing collapse. They're helping, but their grips are very, very firm. You lift your legs onto the table and let them ease you down onto your back. They begin to secure the straps. Until this point, it could be any other visit to the prison doctor, except no one's talking. Not surprising, really. There's not much to say. Your condition has already been diagnosed, and it's terminal. Dangerous, useless bastard, trouble, poor self-control, inconvenient to house and expensive to feed. The combination of symptoms has added up. The cure has been decided. It's no use telling them you're innocent. You've done that for years, done it in every way possible. It hasn't changed a thing. The appeals, a couple of magazine articles, "Burying Our Mistakes," read one headline, appropriate to both prisons and hospitals, changed nothing in the end. The little kid in you, the part which had believed that if you cried hard enough, someone would put it right, is gone now, rubbed out as efficiently and completely as the rest of you soon will be. Some corporate officer is standing in the doorway, a shark-skin gray shadow. You turn to watch him, but Jenkel's hip is in the way. A brief splash of something cold in the crook of your elbow brings your eyes back to the doctor's pinched face. Alcohol. For what? They're swabbing your arm so you don't get an infection. A little prison humor, perhaps, more subtle than you would have expected. You feel something sharp slide through the skin, nosing for your vein, but something goes wrong. The doctor curses quietly, just a hint of panic underneath, and withdraws the needle. Then probes for the vein again, once, twice, 3 times more without success. It hurts, like someone running a sewing machine up your arm. You feel something welling up in your chest that might be either a laugh or a long, bubbling scream. You choke it down, of course. God forbid you should make a spectacle of yourself. They're only going to kill you. Your skin has gone clammy all over. The fluorescents shimmer and swim as the spike of steel at last slides into its proper place, and the doctor tapes it down. The other guard, Simmons, or whatever his name is, leans over and tightens the strap so you don't jerk the needle free. They begin on the next needle. There is something bewildering about this. It's the end of the world, but the people around you are acting as though they were performing some workaday job. Only the tiny beads of sweat on the doctor's upper lip and frowning forehead suggest otherwise. When you have been trussed and lanced successfully, the gray suit in the corner of your vision moves forward. You haven't seen his face before, and you briefly wonder where he fits in the corporate hierarchy. Is he an overwarden or an underwarden? Then you realize what kind of nonsense you're wasting your last moments on and feel a surge of dizzy disgust. This square-jawed white man mouths some suitably mournful platitudes, then lifts a folder and reads out the penal corporation's indemnification, followed by their legal mandate to pump you full of sodium pentothal and then potassium chloride until your heart stops beating and your brain box goes flatline. They used to send a third fatal chemical down the pipe too, but the accountants decided that was gilding the lily. The doctor has started the saline drip, although you feel nothing in your arm except the discomfort of the needle and some stinging from the failed attempts. "Do you understand, son?" the square-jawed white man asks you. "Sure," you want to snarl. You understand better than he knows. You understand that they're just throwing out the trash and then recycling the empties. You'll be more used to society as ram-plugged hydroponic fertilizer than you ever were as a mouth to feed in an expensive privatized cell. You want to snarl, but you don't. For now, looking into the pale blue eyes of this man, you realize, in a way you haven't yet, that you're really going to die. No one is going to jump up from behind the sofa and tell you it was just a joke. It's not a Netflix either. No group of hired mercenaries is going to blow down the prison doors and set you free. In a moment, the doctor is going to push that button, and that bottle of clear liquid, they would be clear liquids, wouldn't they? Colorless, just like this square-jawed, flat-eyed white man they've sent to read your death warrant. That bottle is going to start to bleed into the main line, and then you're going to die. You try to speak, but you can't. The cold has you shivering. Jankel pulls the thin hospital blanket up to your chest, careful not to disturb the transparent tube fanged into your arm like a long glass snake. You nod instead. By God, you're not stupid. You understand the laws and how they work. If it hadn't been one, it would have been another. They make those laws to keep people like you away from what people like them have. So you nod, trying to say what your dry tongue and constricted throat cannot. I know why you want me dead. I don't need any more explanation than that. The man in the gray suit smiles, a tight curved line, as though he recognizes the look in your eyes. He nods to the doctor, just once, and then tucks his folder under his arm and heads for the door, disappearing out of your sight beyond the curving line of Jankel's blue trousers. You have just met the angel of death. He was a stranger. He is always a stranger. Jankel gives your arm a squeeze, which means the doctor has turned the tap on the second line, but you don't look up to meet the guard's eye. You don't want your last sight on earth to be him. He's nobody. Just the man who guarded your cage. A decent guy for a keeper in a human zoo, maybe, but no more than that. A short time passes. Thick, sluggish time that nevertheless hurries. Your gaze slides up toward the fluorescent lights, and they shimmer even more broadly than before. There are little fractures of color around the edges. Your eyes, you realize, are filling with tears. At the same time, the room is growing warmer. You can feel your skin growing looser, your muscles unkinking. This isn't so bad. But you're never coming back. Your heart speeds. They're pushing you out into the darkness. One passenger too many on the big ship, and you've drawn the short straw. Some kind of animal panic runs through you, and for a moment you strain against your bonds, or try to, but the whole thing is too far gone. A muscle twitches in your chest, that's all. A slow contraction, like the early stages of labor. Like birth. Wrong way. Wrong way. You're going out, not coming in. The blackness is tugging you remorselessly, pulling you down, eroding your resistance. You're hanging by your fingernails over an ocean of warm velvet, and it would be so easy, so easy, so easy to let go. But there's something underneath all that softness, something harsh and final and oh so terrifyingly lonely. Gone, the light almost gone, just a fast disappearing smear. Gone, the light gone. A soundless scream, a spark sizzling through a final instant before being swallowed by the cold darkness. Oh God, I don't want to. He was still shivering half an hour later. You're so scanny, Gardner. Lethal injection. Jesus, you're a scan master. Orlando looked up, trying to focus. The dark saloon was full of shadows and trailing mist, but his friend's broad silhouette was hard to mistake. Frederick slipped into one of the crooked high-backed chairs and perused the menu of experiences that flickered across the black tabletop, an ever-changing abstract spiderweb of frost-white letters. He made a face of exaggerated disgust. The defiant lift to his shoulders made his sim appear even more chesty and muscle-bound than usual. What is it with you and these fringe trips, Gardner? Orlando could never figure out why Fredericks liked bodybuilder sims. Maybe in real life he was a scrawny little guy. It was impossible to know, since Orlando had never seen his friend in the flesh, and at this point it would be embarrassing even to ask. Besides, Orlando himself was not innocent of image tampering. By the way, I'm going to be reading this till the end of the next section, be another couple of minutes. Orlando himself was not innocent of image tampering. The sim he was wearing was, as usual, a well-crafted product, although not particularly handsome or physically impressive. The death rides? I just liked them. He was having some difficulty composing his thoughts, legacy of that last slide down into nothingness. They interest me. Yeah, well, I think they're morbid major. A line of tiny skeletons conga danced across the tabletop in front of Fredericks, each one dressed in full Carmen Miranda drag. They strutted, hip shook, then vanished in a sequence of pops as they tumbled over the edge. The place was full of the things. Miniature skeletons playing fireman's pole on the swizzle sticks and skating on the ice trays. An entire skeletal army performing acrobatics on the vast chandelier. Some, in tiny Stetsons and chaps, even rode on the bats flittering in the shadows beneath the high ceiling. The decor of the Last Chance Saloon traded heavily on its virtual proximity to Terminal Row. Most of its habitués, however, preferred the mock Gothic of the club to the more unpleasant and more realistic experiences on sale at the next site over. You did the airplane crash with me, Orlando pointed out. Frederick snorted. Yeah, once. You've been on that one so many times, they probably have your seat permanently reserved. His broad sim face flattened out for a moment, as though somewhere the real Fredericks had withdrawn from the system. But it was only his software's inability to show sullenness. Unfortunate, since Fredericks was prone to it. That was the worst. I thought I was really going to die. I thought my heart was going to stop. How can you do that kind of shit, Gardner? You get used to it. But he hadn't, really. And that was part of the problem. In the conversational lull that followed, the vast doors at one side of the saloon creaked open and a painfully cold wind swirled through the room. Orlando absently turned down his susceptibility. Fredericks, using a less expensive interface, didn't even notice. Something with glowing red eyes loomed in the open doorway, confettied with whirling snow. A few of the patrons nearest the door laughed. One, very feminine sim, screamed. Someone told me that they record those simulations from real people dying, said Fredericks abruptly. They take them right off real people's interface rigs. Nah, Orlando shook his head. They're just good gear, well written. He watched as the red-eyed thing grabbed the screaming woman and dragged her off into the snowy night. The doors creaked shut again. What, they just sent somebody up, fitted with a giga-expensive top-of-the-line teleneural recording rig, and it just happens to be running when a plane does a Manila? That's like a 1,000,000,001 chance, Frederico, and you wouldn't be getting it in some net arcade. Not to mention the fact that you can't record that kind of experience and play it back anyway. Not like that. I've checked up on it, man. Real people recordings are just a jumble of stuff. A real monster mix. You can't interpret somebody else's experience through a different brain. It doesn't work. Yeah? Fredericks did not sound entirely convinced, but he lacked Orlando's obsessive interest in VR and the net and generally didn't dispute him about such things. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. Orlando leaned back. We've got more important things to deal with, and we need to talk in private. This place is dead anyway. Let's go to my cot. Yeah, this place is dead. Fredericks giggled as two finger-length skeletons skittered across the table, playing frisbee with a bottle cap. Orlando frowned. That's not what I meant. And we're going to stop there. Ooh, I went 5 minutes over. But now I have my bookmark back. Anyway, with that, I am going to go wander upstairs and see to various Christmas tree trimming and other family chores that await me. But I will thank you all very much. I will reiterate my message from the beginning of the show, which is I do not believe, unless some really strange circumstances come up, that I will be doing a reading next week because of Christmas and family Christmas things and all that stuff. So I will then be back the week after, which I think is January 2nd. Or no, I guess, well, yeah, I guess it's the early morning. Let me check my calendar here just to get the dates right. So, yes, very early Sunday the 2nd. I will be back to do the first reading. That's at 1 a.m. And then at 7 p.m., Sunday the 2nd, I will be doing this time slot. So please join me then. And if you celebrate Christmas, have a wonderful Christmas. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, have a wonderful Kwanzaa. If you celebrate Festivus, may you have a happy Pole. And with that, I will say, and obviously happy Hanukkah, although I think that that's already done. So I hope if you celebrate Hanukkah, your Hanukkah was happy. So be happy is what I'm saying. Keep taking care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones, friends, and neighbors. I will do the same here as best I can. And we will reconvene on January the 2nd, either at 1 a.m. or at 7 p.m. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I will see you very soon. Peace and frohe Weihnachten, Feliz Navidad, all that good stuff. Jolie Noël. That's the French one. I couldn't remember it.